Okay, so my name is Kai Bird, and I'm here with Sohail Rekhy. And I just want to begin by noting that by coincidence of life, we are both graduates of Koti Kanho School. He's a much younger man, though, but we both hail from Tamil Nadu.
That's right.
And really have fond memories of the Palni Hills.
Yes, we do. Wonderful school.
Anyway, Sohail, this is a wonderful historical novel,
Thank you.
deeply written, evocative, colorful, of a bygone era.
Right.
But I want to begin by asking you a personal question about your grandmother,
Right.
the late Ratnavali Ahluwalia.
That's right.
And the quote, never-ending epics she narrated to you every evening. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it's usually the Ramayana and parts of the Mahabharata, but with her it was a Ramayana. And she would use the core of the legend and the myth, but she would make up a lot of things, include allusions to family members, and it was a never-ending moral tale. Also to kind of find out what my thoughts were, what my reactions were. And I really enjoyed those bedtime tales almost every night.
So she elaborated on the sacred texts.
Yes,
and put your family members in them. So she was sort of teaching you to be a novelist.
At some level, yes. I did not realize it then, but definitely a storyteller. And that was an important tradition, I think, in the family.
Wow. So tell us why this legend? Why?
It actually happened quite by chance. I was researching a pirate, looking for a pirate on the western coast of India. And that's when I first came across Kanho Angria, but he was portrayed as a pirate. And he had been painted so for the past 300 years. It's just when I started doing further research on Kanhoji, especially by Mr. John Key, who's written amazing books on the East India Company, did I find out that actually he was a Subedar of the Konkan and an admiral of the Chhatrapatis. And being a student of history, I was surprised that I did not know of him. I did study in Maharashtra when I was younger, but then I moved down to South India. So I had no knowledge of him whatsoever. This in spite of the fact that the grandmother you just mentioned, her youngest brother, was a Commodore at the INS Angria. And yet the personality of Kanhoji Angria had entirely escaped me, and I was ignorant of it. And that kind of bothered me. And then when I realized how successful a person he was, I just wondered, how is it that he is not a national hero, or rather why so few people know about him? And I just got obsessed with that.
So how long did it take you to write this book?
Well, I think from start to the last draft, it was 5 years. And then a little bit of, then it got rejected because it was much too large. And then I had to rework it and make it handleable. But it took 5 years, and half of that was research.
So, you know, I'm a biographer by
That's right, yeah.
Most of my books. And I like to say that biographers are novelists with footnotes. You know, we try to tell a story like a
Yes.
novelist does.
Right.
But unfortunately, we're constrained by the facts.
Yes.
And every quote has to have a citation.
Right.
And yet we still are trying to like a novelist, weave in the anecdotes and stories, and to retain the attention of the reader. So we're actually trying to learn from the novelists, we biographers. But I get the sense also that in a historical novel like this, you are learning from the biographer. You've essentially written a biography in a novelistic format. So you're making up dialogue about a real historical character.
Right.
So I'm curious about the tension between the reality, what you researched and knew about your pirate,
Right.
Angria,
Yes.
who is both a pirate but also in the eyes of the Marathas, that he's a national hero.
That's right. Yes.
So there's this tension. So what is the line between fiction and nonfiction in this book?
Well, you know, after having just finished your book, the amount of research that has gone into that, I feel I was maybe a little lacking, but I did try my best. And I was separated by 350 years of, in time, and sources were hard to come by. And though there were a lot of information on battles he fought, letters he wrote, business he conducted, very little as to his personality. And so I needed to find a motive. What were his motives? What drove him in life? And I looked at every source I could find. And then,
What are the sources?
well, we have letters written to him, by him to the Portuguese and vice versa, to the English East India Company, to the Swarajya, his overlords, the Chhatrapatis. They would often rebuke him for being too aggressive with the European powers, because they were bringing in not only very good gold and silver, but cannon, musket. And so there was always, they needed to have a balance. They needed the Europeans for certain goods, but they also needed to keep them in check. So we have these letters, and I think I used a direct quotation from one of his letters, and I found that to be, I found his soul, in that line, because he came across as a very pragmatic and rational person. And it was a little incident about him writing to the English when they accused him of piracy again for paying for some wood he took, which he needed urgently. And the letter back to the English was also humorous. And humorous and a bit sarcastic. And so you did get elements of his personality come out in those letters.
So where are these letters?
They are, a lot of them have been reproduced in books written later on the Marathas by Grant Duff. Some are in the archives in Bombay, in the Maritime and Naval Museum, and some of them are in Portugal. Some of them are the East India office in London. But we were able to get a lot of them from the Asiatic Library in Mumbai itself.
So you actually touched some of the letters that he wrote?
No, facsimiles of them, not
okay. Not the
original,
actual
no.
originals.
The only thing I could
They're very
touch,
old.
very old,
Yeah.
350 years old, and the only thing of his I touched was a coin he had minted. Other than that, no paper.
Yeah. Well, biographers, like novelists, like to actually touch an object that was held by their
That's right,
subject.
you feel
Yeah.
some.
So let's go back and give us a brief thumbnail history of his life.
He started off as very young in life, and actually that was, people did start off at a very young age as opposed to now. And he displayed a lot of loyalty in one of his first incidences when he was a sub-commander and his senior was planning to betray the fort and hand it over to the Abyssinian Siddis. And this was his first, this is the first time he was mentioned in history when he prevented the acquisition of the fort. And he must have been only 18 or 19 at that age. And he was marked for his loyalty, and then he came to the knowledge of the Maratha Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, and his legend then grew from there. I had to embellish some records to bring him to Chhatrapati's mind, just to focus the Marathas onto him, though it may not have been true at that young age.
So he was born in what year and died in?
He was born in 1669 and he passed away in 1729. Actually, he died of old age. It was not as depicted in the book. And he was undefeated in life, so I had a hard time finding a villain that could give him a run for his money or provide the correct amount of tension and conflict.
So today, in the public mind here in India, is he a national hero or is he forgotten?
I find him to be forgotten. There are, other than the Western Command, INS Angria, and the Angria banks, very few testaments or celebration of Kanho Angria. And as he was a super success story, and given that he is not more than a paragraph in high school history in Maharashtra only. People outside of the state of Maharashtra, and there are several 24 other states, no one really knows Kanho Angria at all. And I did not know him studying history in South India at all. He was never once mentioned, that is also due to the fact that the Marathas and their century, which was the early 18th century, was also, I feel, ignored by the British historians and then the later Marxist historians, because the British were looking for direct provenance, that they had inherited the country from the Mughal Raj, when actually, inconveniently, the Marathas did rule almost all of India for a good 50, 60 years prior to that. And of course, the English came up on top of that conflict, and the Marathas were subdivided into several smaller kingdoms that became subservient to the British later. But I think that has been willfully ignored. Even Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, who was a really great king, has been denigrated in many ways. When I studied history, at least when I was younger, there was a lot of denigration of both Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj and the Marathas in general.
So, as a novelist, you're really a revisionist historian. You're trying to revise the history and bring to life a forgotten figure.
Yes, in this case, I absolutely agree with that. That was my agenda, because I wanted to present a narrative that was just something in antagonism to all the other narratives that have existed for 350 years now, painting him a pirate. So I just wanted to put forth one fictional tale of a different view of Kanho Angria.
But of course, it's 350 years ago, and I see in the novel you spend a lot of time trying to recreate with details of daily life, what they ate, how they dress, how they fought battles, the weapons they had, the sailing ships that were at their command, and it's a cultural history too that I think you're trying to, in the dialogue, you're recreating relationships between men and women and a family, and so it's a lot of imagination or history. I keep coming back to this.
I relied a lot on my imagination for the personality of Kanho Angria, but I wanted to be true to the times. Social mores and cultural phenomena of the time was heavily researched. We did have an issue with caste back in the day. People from different castes could not eat together. And, this did create problems when you were trying to create armies or, it was just inefficient. And you see in the north, the Punjabis with Sikhism were able to remove these impediments. And I think the Marathas tried their best, but they were limited by the social mores of the time. You will also notice there is very little on female characters, and they were not treated. They were treated as possessions. There were some strong characters. There were queens who fought for their husbands and their sons as regents. But a majority of them, if they did not come from very powerful aristocratic families and did not have that education, played very secondary roles to their husbands or to the time.
So, from the British colonial perspective, Angria is a pirate, and an annoying pirate. He keeps winning his battles.
That's right. Yes.
So, do you see that in the literature from the British point of view?
Yes, and they had a particular agenda, especially Governor Charles Boone. And of course, the governors also have been composites. They were trying to get London to finance the Bombay Marine and send more funds. And one of the best ways to do that was to create this bogeyman who was, looting them, and they didn't want to say that he was a tax agent of the Marathas, but they posed him as a pirate and required funds for battlements and for the Bombay Marine.
So it's a real clash of cultures and civilizations.
I think we were learning a lot from each other at that point. The Europeans and the Indians, of course, have had a long association. A lot of people have been coming to South Asia for trade for thousands of years. But as we started working more either against each other, initially it was with each other for the purpose of trade, we learnt a lot. And I think people like Clive were very smart in figuring out what it was. He realized that as a trader, he had nothing to offer the Indian system. But as a Jagirdar, as a landlord, he could make a play. And that is exactly what he did later on.
So, in the end, is our hero here a pirate or a patriot?
I have portrayed him as a patriot. I do not find him, the Europeans did see him as a pirate, or rather painted him as a pirate, though I don't think at that time they would have thought him so themselves. But the literature that grew around this Oriental fantasy, which you even see in writers like Salegari later on, is on stories like Tigers of Montpressem. It is this dark eastern pirate which needed to be subdued.
Right. So. And so you're writing to counter that.
It's a counter narrative.
Right. So tell us about your own writing life. What's your routine when you get?
I write in the mornings. I write every day like a job, and you have to do it every day. And between drafts, I give a month just to fresh eyes. And in the beginning, it's just a lot of research. I love research. Being a student of history, sometimes I have to pull myself back and get back to the business of writing, but it's something I really enjoy. And once I have done my research, I do look for some form of inspiration, some elements of serendipity for things to come together. And then if I need further specific research, I may carry on with that. But it's a process of just writing every day. sitting on your desk and immersing yourself in that period and in those personalities.
Yeah, that's true. I find that when I'm writing, it's good to write every day, but just a little bit. And when I start to write after I've done a year or two of research, that's when I start to write. That's the time when I discover what I don't know that I have to go and research again.
Yes.
So it's an endless circle.
Right.
As you write, you discover what you need to figure out.
Yes.
And I'm sure this is true of the imaginative parts. You feel only when you start to write do you understand what you need to imagine.
That's right, yeah. It's a little difficult in the beginning because there is more imagination and it's tiring. And there's only so much, inspiration, you can't wait for it, but I can't do more than 3 or 4 hours. I can edit for hours, that's not a problem. But when it comes to write after 3-4 hours in the morning, that's it. And then I go back to reading.
Oh, I quite agree. And I've always said this to my wife, that I can only write 3 hours a day maximum. And she accuses me of being lazy.
Well, I totally, my wife is out there in the audience, and I hope for the next book she's going to let me have my way, because she's like, are you sure you're writing a book?
Right. No, people who are not writers don't understand how exhausting it is to actually be sitting there crafting those sentences. And after 3 hours, you're exhausted.
Yes.
At least that is my experience, and
Same
I guess
here,
yours.
Same here.
So, tell me, what are you thinking of doing next? Do you have a new project?
Yes, and my agent is very keen. He's checking up what I'm doing. He's saying, don't rest. So, actually, the book I had started doing the research was, I'm going to write that. I was planning to write something for my daughter, a children's book. And when I was doing research for that, that's when I came across Kanho ji Angria. So I still owe her that book, and I'm working on that. But I'm going to stick to Indian history. I find it's just an endless mine of possible subjects, and it's what really interests me, so I'm just going to stick to that.
Okay, so maybe we have some time for some questions from the audience. Yes.
Yes, sir. No,
We need a microphone.
Amitav, sir is asking me who my role model is as novelists go, and I think a great influence is Mr. Amitav Ghosh. I just love how evocative he is, how he's able to transport us back and deal with several generations. So Amitav Ghosh is definitely a beacon. Yes, ma'am.
Writing about. Good afternoon, sir.
Good
This
afternoon.
is Niyati.
Hi.
And my question is, what inspired you to bring to light the maritime sector of India, such a time that had gone back so long ago that not many people actually know about it?
There's one aspect of our culture which has always fascinated me and confused me, which is our concept of kala pani, that we lose our caste once we venture out past the brown waters. And this is, I think, really held us back. And I think I've tried to show that in the novel, but I've always wondered why we have this fear of the sea. though we do have a tradition on the eastern coast, you know, the Cholas were able to venture far east and spread their dominion, you know, to whether it be all the way up to the Philippines, definitely to the Indonesian archipelago. And we've actually at the same time, I think the trade route between Gujarat and Aden, the southern tip of Arabia, is possibly the oldest and currently living trade route. Must be over for 5,000 years, and those dhows are still going up and down. So at one hand, we do have that culture, and on the other, this notion of Kala Pani.
This is a personal experience I would like to share, sir. I'm a daughter of a merchant navy officer who has studied from Chanakya, training ship Chanakya in Mumbai, former training ship Rajendra, getting its name from Rajendra Chola. And I visited the Angria cruise, the only Mumbai-Goa cruise that exists, which has now been halted for a while. I visited it before its inauguration, and there was a huge painting. One of the first things you notice when you enter the ship is a huge painting of a man on a ship, winding through the sails, struggling through the sails. You see his resilience against those waves. And I, at the time, did not know who the man was. I just felt it was a very nice painting. And today I get to know that he was Angria himself. And I'm really glad that I came to this book launch. And I'm very inquisitive about the book. I'll be reading it. And I think it was a destiny. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Very kind of you.
Hi, Sohail. Hi,
Hello.
Kai. I work at Kodaikanal International School.
Oh, okay.
My wife and I both attended Kodaikanal International School. Both proud of both of you.
Thank you.
Very much. Anyone else here from? Okay. And please come back anytime and talk to our students.
Sure.
I'm wondering what one or two lessons of your book are for modern times, for young people. Your book or biographies or fictionalized biographies in general, what are some lessons for young people from your book?
Mr. Bird, would you like to go first?
No.
Okay. Well, one has to watch out for hubris, you know. This is also a fable. He was undefeated in life, and I did need to create some tension. And here we see, you know, Icarus-like situation where maybe he succeeded in his naval battles, but the downfall was due to maybe unchecked ambition and I won't say greed, but ambition. So we can keep that in mind.
Well, briefly, I would just say, you know, at Cody, I was exposed to American history, Canadian history, but a lot of Indian history. And we had field trips all over South India and to some of the ancient archaeological sites in Bangalore. And it was, you know, an exposure to another universe. And so I think that was an important part of my experience. I fell in love with studying history, and you know, I think the importance of these books is to recreate for a young mind exactly where we came from. You know, history is important because it's our efforts as human beings to understand our world. And you cannot do that without history, and I think biography, and sometimes novels are the best. But my genre is biography, and I think it's a wonderful vehicle for, particularly for young people, to understand, like a figure like Robert Oppenheimer. In the beginning of the book, the early chapters, you understand that, oh, he's this historical icon, father of the atomic bomb. But early in the book, you learn what a fragile personality he was, how he struggled with a prolonged adolescence, his social awkwardness. And, you know, these sort of personality weaknesses are important for young people to understand because they too are going through this evolution. That's an important part of the experience of reading history.
Yes, and I think my teachers in Kodi, a lot of them I have thanked in my acknowledgement. Some of them have passed, but all of them are very close to my heart. I'm still in touch with those that survive, and I thank them for making me not only the writer I am, but the man I am today, the person I am today. And I think hats off to Kodaikanal School, and I think they still continue to do that. Waiting to send my daughter there soon.
Hi. Hi, thank you so much for the talk. I had a... Is the mic on? Okay, hi. Am I audible? Yeah. Hi, thank you so much for your talk. I have a quick comment and a question. I'm Ashna. My father was in the Indian Navy, so I actually grew up listening to stories of Kanho Angria because one of the ships is renamed after him, the INS Angria. So thank you for bringing this to life. This is beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Definitely going to be gifting him this book. I had a quick question. You mentioned that when it came to the English, they sort of portrayed him in a certain light as a pirate and because it served their agenda. I was wondering, in the Indian Navy historical archives, while you were doing your research, did you find enough material on Angria, or are there gaps there? Because I'd love to take that back then, to why we haven't done enough there.
Well, there is a lot available. But there may not be. There is very little on the man, the personality,
okay,
right? So you know how they fought, what the battles were. So you have a lot of that knowledge, and that is there, and that's been well preserved.
Thank you. Just one more quick question. I
Sure.
heard you went to Kodai. I'm actually the consulting editor with Kunur & Co. It's a journal based out of the Nilgiris. And I was wondering whether you would be open to contributing to our pieces. I could connect with you after this, maybe. Just your memories growing up in Kodai or in the Nilgiris. We do long forms, photo essays, and also audio text. So, yeah.
Sure, we would love to. I love visiting Kodi, either physically or in my memories. It's a beautiful place, well taken care of still, well preserved. So
Thank
I'd
you.
love
I'll
to.
catch you after this. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hello. Thank you for this. Very interesting. My name is Roger Cohen. I work for the New York Times, and I occasionally write books. I like the idea very much of biography as novels with footnotes. That's a beautiful thought. Sohail, I was wondering if you could take us a little deeper into the creative process during those 3 hours. So here you are with all these facts that you have relentlessly researched over a long period, and you're sitting there and you want to project yourself into the imaginary. What is the process that gets you there?
This is something my history teacher taught me in Kodaikanal. He would ask me to go to the local market, you know, in your mind, whether it was in Kulaba or Padma Durg in 1699 or 1705, that you just take a walk down and see what's available, the sights, the sounds, and you really try to transport yourself using all the data you have. What goods were available, the nature of sailing. So keeping all those metrics in mind of what was available, you kind of just go shopping. You know, he would say, go shopping to the local market back in the day. And I think it helps.
Well, I'd answer that question by saying in biography, you know, you have sort of a automatic outline that's there to start with. It's called chronology. So you gather all these facts and try to keep some sense of where they are. But my strategy after writing my first biography, which took me 10 years, and I would meticulously outline each chapter. It would take me longer to write the outline than the actual chapter. Well, by my second book, I threw that out the window, and instead, as I fell asleep each night, I would try to think about what would get me going, what would spark my interest the next morning in terms of a funny anecdote, a compelling story, a great quote, and I would just start with that the next morning and not worry too much about the quote outline or even the chronology. Sometimes you break away from the chronology. You have to in order to grapple with an array of issues. But what's important is the anecdote that will draw the reader in. And that's sort of the novelistic part of even a nonfiction book like biography. And yes, we do take heart and inspiration from the novelists because they are the storytellers who don't need the footnotes, although they do research, as we all know. Anyway, I am constantly trying to struggle with telling a good story. And, not pretending that I am the omniscient biographer who knows everything. Well, you can never know everything about another person's life. So the biographer is taking little slices. It's my story about Robert Ames or Jimmy Carter, and another biographer will come along and will tell a quite different account. So it is novelistic, and yet at the same time, unlike the novelist, we have to meticulously keep track of every quote and the source and the citation for things so that we can maintain this compact with the reader that what we are writing is at least close to the truth and a search for the truth of what happened. So the footnotes are very important. I must confess, when I pick up a biography, I often read the footnotes first because they're so important.
Hello, sir. I am Sanjay Sathe.
Good afternoon.
From Kolhapur. Good afternoon, both of you. Perhaps this is the first biographical novel on Kanhoji Angria. And Medha Bhaskaran has produced number of books on Shivaji. So I must congratulate you on this particular adventure of yours.
Thank you.
My question is quite simple. Kanhoji Angria, and the title is a little bit changed. Why?
He was, when they would scream out his name, it was Angria. And though even his Angria also comes about, initially their surname was Sankpal. And in Marathi it's called Angria. But the Europeans and the Siddis, when they used to see their boats, they used to scream out Angria, and they were also known as the Angrians. So I wanted to portray that. It was a kind of a mythologizing of Kanhoji Angria also.
One more thing.
Ji.
This particular book, did you consult some Marathi literary sources for that?
Sir, we do have 2 or 3 what are called bakhars.
Yeah.
And these are Marathi hagiographic accounts of, there are on the Chhatrapatis and on Kanhoji Angria. And I must also mention Manohar Mulgaonkar's book, which was written in the 50s, The Seahawks, which was a really good history of Kanhoji Angria. But that was not a novel, it was a historical book.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Hello. So when it comes to biographies, what matters more, a good story or a complete story?
Well, I would, if I had to be pressed, I'd say a good story, because you can't possibly tell the comprehensive story. You know, my last biography was on Jimmy Carter, a president, and every day a president deals with dozens of issues that come across his desk, and so you can't possibly recreate even one day in the life of the president, and it would be boring to do so. So it is my novelistic storytelling, my story about Jimmy Carter, done with footnotes. And it's my judgment of what interests me personally. So it's very subjective. Again, I don't, as the biographer, pretend to be objective. It's a very subjective art. It is an art. And yet it's fascinating to me in that I am, you know, obsessed with the archives. I want to find the stories in the archives, or at least in interviews, in oral histories. But even there, it is a part of the truth, and it's not the whole story. This is why we have multiple biographies about the same person. They're different angles, different lenses through which you can see anyone's life. And that's the complexity of the human being.
And in my case, sometimes, well, I had to throw 60,000 words out the window, so I did maybe provide a larger picture, but I think it needs to be focused and interesting. And I just hope that as far as, I think as biographers, we love our protagonists, and we want other people to explore them too, in their way.
So Sohail, I'm curious, tell me about the cover. It's a painting, and it's very evocative. How did this cover come about?
This has been done by a Bhutanese artist, Yishe, and she is my daughter's art teacher, and we worked on it. I just basically gave her a brief, and she did this really beautiful cover, which is being appreciated by one and all. So I'm very thankful to her.
It is beautiful. Yeah, it's a
Thank
piece
you.
of
I will
art.
let her know. She'll be very happy.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, Sohail. This has
Thank
been
you, Mr.
lovely.
Bird. Absolute pleasure, sir, and a privilege.